Welcome back to Scary Animal Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the hot African savanna located along the Luangwa River Valley near the village of Mafui in eastern Zambia. The climate is a tropical climate with a long summer rainy season leading to tall grasses and lots of animals dashing across the high plateau. The cool, dry winters stress the plants and animals enough that migrations of nearly every kind of animal are a yearly event and part of the cycle of nutrients and energy. In the early summer of 1991, two boys were playing far too late after sunset. They were having fun playing and had lost track of time and were walking through the darkness returning home. As they walked, they were being followed by a very interested and dangerous party from the tall grass. As the boys neared a point that the cover and the road they were traveling on converged, a giant lion sprang from the grass and knocked one of the boys to his back. The lion bit the boy in the neck and subdued him in mere seconds. Upon seeing his friend taken down and killed, the other boy ran to get help. After running through the dark, the boy found some game rangers, and the authorities were called. The game rangers showed up and closed in on the attack scene, firearms at the ready. As they searched the attack scene, all that remained of the young man were a few tattered bits of his clothing, only parts of his chewed-up skull, and a few bone fragments. Almost 30 days later, a woman was walking around the edge of her village after gathering some necessities. As she arrived at her home, she put her provisions away and began her typical tasks as she readied for evening time. The giant lion stealthily crept up to her front door and knocked it down. It entered her hut and bit and clawed the woman severely. It wasn't long before the woman was too injured to continue the fight for her life, and she died. Upon discovering the attack scene, the authorities searched the scrub bush near the woman's hut and eventually found her remains. The lion had consumed all of her body, with the exception of her head and her arms. Her remains were buried, and the terror continued. The next night, a young man had made an agreement with one of his friends to sneak out and meet up. They were just planning on messing around and having fun together. On his way to the meeting point, the young man was ambushed by the giant lion right in front of the game ranger's office. The lion knocked the boy to the ground and began biting and clawing him around the head and neck, just as he'd done to his prior victims. A game ranger was nearby and overheard the attack. He stood up and fired his rifle into the air. The lion was startled and ceased the attack on the young man. The lion ran for the grass, leaving the young man with severe neck lacerations. The young man was taken to the hospital for immediate care, but the injuries he sustained during the attack would be too devastating, and he lost his life a short time later. Over the next few weeks, 3 more fatal lion attacks occurred, one of which involved a village woman on her porch. In the middle of broad daylight and just outside her door, a hunter lurked in the tall grass. As the local group of game rangers approached her hut, the giant lion appeared and savaged the woman right before their eyes. They fired a warning shot, and the beast disappeared into the grass, unscathed. The game rangers arrived, but only a few moments too late to help the woman, as the lion had inflicted lethal wounds to her body. The villagers and authorities were at a loss for finding the predatory cat and decided to take the local lion pride down a few individuals. They set out on short hunting trips and seemingly randomly chose a lioness to blame and shot her, but that did not stop the attacks. Near the village of Nagozo, a woman named Jesline was on edge ever since hearing of the attacks. She had just bagged her laundry to take to the river the next day for cleaning and laid down in her bed. While she slept, the giant lion knocked down her door and snatched her from her bed. Jesline screamed in terror and pain as she was dragged off into the bush. The lion consumed her body, but would be back. By the middle of the next day, villagers watched a giant lion stride confidently up to Jesline's house and walked right in through the door. It was inside for a few moments before it emerged carrying her bag of dirty laundry. For some reason, the lion packed the bag of laundry off into the bush. Perhaps it wanted a trophy to remind itself of its successful hunt. As the area residents peered out of their hut windows and banged on pots and pans to scare the lion away, it calmly carried the bag to the center of the village and set it down. It then roared loudly as it stared around at the huts now sheltering terrified residents. Then it picked Jesline's laundry bag back up and strode confidently back into the bush. The giant lion was seen all around the village playing with the laundry bag like a house cat with a toy. It would carry the bag and bat it around and bite it. The villagers were terrified at the sight of the lion and assigned it a magical power. They believed the lion was a demon, and as it played with the bag, it was doing magic and casting evil spells. They said that the lion was actually a sorcerer, performing magic that would change his form into a lion so that he could terrorize the villagers. The predatory actions were such a shock to the area that professional hunters visiting for hunting trips decided to see if they could dispatch the murderous giant. One such hunter was a Japanese bounty hunter who specialized in finding specific individuals for removal. The bounty hunter set traps all over the area and pursued the lion for weeks, but came up with nothing. A second professional hunter named Adrian Carr was brought in and tried some of the same tactics and some new ones. Adrian hung a carcass about 10 feet off the ground from a tree, then set up a blind a short distance away. One dark night, while hiding in the blind, Adrian heard the lion's footfalls as he approached the bait carcass. He could hear the giant cat chewing on the meat, and decided to let it eat for a few moments before shooting it. After about 20 minutes, he flipped on the spotlight and could see the giant lion standing on its hind legs, chewing on the suspended carcass. He aimed his rifle in its direction, but as soon as the light hit him, the lion flattened itself onto the ground and disappeared in the darkness before Wayne could fire a shot. Adrian unfortunately had the same result as the prior bounty hunter. The lion continually outsmarted even the most experienced bounty hunters. Wayne Hosek was an American professional hunter who was visiting the area on a private hunting trip as well. His party had come across the lion's favorite toy, Jasline's laundry bag. The hunters decided to set up a large blind to watch the bag and stash of hippo meat they set out as bait for the lion. The men observed the bait for 3 weeks, and, at many points, thought they had the man-eater, only to have it be a different species passing through in the night. They did manage to get the lion to come into the bait as its tracks were found circling the bait at daylight, but the stealthy creature slipped in and out without alerting the hunters. The hunters moved the site of the hunting blind a few times, but while moving it, the lion would slip in and take their bait from right under their noses. At one point, the lion even stole the laundry bag back, without them seeing him take it. As the hunters were waiting for an opportunity in the blind, the lion would frequently creep around the blind, always managing to stay in cover, so the men couldn't shoot him. He would roar and chuff close to the hunters, but remain concealed. At one point, Wayne took his camera outside to photograph one of the lion's massive tracks in the sand, and the camera wouldn't work. The hunters began wondering if what the villagers were saying about the lion having magical powers was true. The hunters knew the giant was watching them, seemingly constantly, and that he would take advantage of whenever they moved their blinds. They devised a strategy that they hoped would fool the brash predator. They would build a blind and put out the hippo meat as bait. Then they would leave the blind and take an observational position somewhere else. The hunters set up their decoy position overlooking the bait and their faux blind when they could see movement through the bush ahead. Wayne could see this lion coming in, and it was not slow walking in with caution or fear, but nearly trotting in with his hackles raised in aggression. As soon as the lion emerged from the cover that previously cloaked it, Wayne could see its immense proportions. It was clearly a male, but was maneless and very light-colored to a near cream color. Just as Wayne leveled the sight of his rifle on the lion's rib cage, it turned its head directly to the hunters and growled in disdain and acknowledgement. It knew they were there, but Wayne fired a clean kill shot, and the giant man-eater collapsed. The hunters approached the sprawled lion from the rear and waited for 25 minutes before convincing themselves it was actually dead enough to touch. Charles, who was Wayne's hunting partner, pulled his camera out for a picture, and his camera also mysteriously malfunctioned and would not work. The magical mystique of this lion didn't stop with its heartbeat. After the hunters brought the lion carcass to the villagers to prove to them they no longer needed to fear it, they celebrated. The villagers hit the carcass with sticks and spit on it in contempt. The local shaman performed magical ceremonies to permanently banish the spirit and power of the lion from their area. While compiling the research on this episode, I discovered that most man-eating lions are female, but when they are male, they tend to be maneless males, like the man-eater of Mafui. Some contend that the maneless lions, sometimes referred to as buffalo lions due to their size, aiding their buffalo hunting, are an ancient line of lions with archaic genetic traits. Many man-eaters are down and out, meaning that they predate on humans because they are old or diseased. They may have had a severe injury or a broken jaw from a zebra or giraffe kick and could only hunt humans successfully. This may cause them to lose their manes due to malnutrition, but the man-eater of Mafui was robust and healthy. Some theorize that the man-eating lions lost their manes due to an overabundance of testosterone in their system, which does shrink hair follicles. That theory offers an explanation for the aggression as well. Please post your theories, comments, or observations in the comments section below so we can chat about it. Thank you for watching Scary Animal Attacks. Today's episode whisks us away to the rural region of Chiramanzu in central Zimbabwe in Africa, to a village called Bulawayo. The topography of Zimbabwe is unique as the entire country slants up toward the west. The eastern lands are lower in elevation and receive more rainfall and steadier temperatures. The western portion can be over a mile high in elevation and varies from the mid-50s to the mid-70s in temperature. The western portion also has a distinction between the rainy and dry seasons that is not as dramatic as the eastern portion. Although most of this nation is savanna, which is open grasslands with sparse trees, there are forests of evergreen and teak trees in places. Animals that are common in the savanna include elephants, wildebeest, innumerable antelope species, lions, and the animal with the hilarious laugh, the hyena. On Friday, November 20th of 2020, 46-year-old Tende Masika was finishing up a night of drinking beer at a nearby bar. He walked home late at night and immediately went to bed to sleep off the libations. Ever since the COVID-19 pandemic stopped the tourists from coming to his area, things have been hard and money even rarer than normal. The dry season always brings attention to the savanna, but this year, local reports of missing goats and cattle are on the rise. Animals become more concentrated around water resources in the dry season, which puts territorial animals at odds and competing for prey. They have to invade another pack or pride's territory, or they must stay on their own territory and somehow get by. Tendai has watched this cycle play out many times over his life. Tendai's walk home in the dark was without human company, but there was non-human company. The local hyena clan has been watching the man slip through the darkness, and the opportunity he presents does not go unnoticed. They follow him from a short distance and watch as he flips the door to his mud hut open and forgets to secure it completely. As Tendai drank his beer, the resident hyena clan searched for food. The dry season has emptied their territory of most of their typical prey, and they've been encroaching on farms of the area, killing livestock. But they're about to do something that will change the clan's relationship with the farmers forever. The clan cautiously approaches ever closer to his home. They smell the human inside, and their empty stomachs churn with the idea of having something to eat. The clan slowly approaches the closed door to his house and peer inside through the lattice of the door. They can see in the dark, and their sense of smell and hearing are very acute, but right now their hunger is what is driving them. As the boldest of the clan approach the door, it slides open, and it wasn't very well secured. Tendai's scent fills their nostrils, and once the attack starts, it only gains momentum. The clan converges on him, and his screams fill the air. The clan drag him by his leg outside, where the frenzied attack culminates with Tendai's fight for life being overcome by the clan's pursuit of the same. In the morning, a neighboring farmer walks by Tendai's hut and sees something peculiar a short distance away. As she approaches this oddity, she sees the horrific sight of Tendai's severed head resting on the grass. She runs to get help from her elders. There's a small group of the area men who approach Tendai's hut, and they inspect the inside while trying to confirm the girl's story. The inside of his hut is splattered with his blood, and the men see drag marks leading from his front door. All around his hut, hyena tracks begin to tell the story of the night's events. As the men follow the drag trail, they can see pools of blood where the clan apparently stopped to tear pieces from his body. They carry on further along the drag trail and come to find Tendai's severed head, just as the girl said. An inspection of the area yields one of his arms, then another. It appears the hyena clan was chewing off Tendai's appendages from his body as they dragged him along. Finally, they come to his severed legs and observe the scattered hyena tracks and scat all around the spot where they consumed his body over the night. They collected the remaining body parts and buried them. The hyena used their extremely powerful jaws to consume his hip and shoulder bones, but didn't consume his arms, leg, or head before the men could gather them up. The hyena clan dragged Tendai's body just over 1,000 feet as they stopped to consume a portion of him here or there. The authorities immediately dispatched government hunters to eliminate the clan of 6 hyenas who live in the area and were immediately suspected of the attack. No further sources could be found that indicate whether the hunters' efforts were fruitful or if they failed. This attack was one of the 60 human fatalities in 2020 in Zimbabwe caused by wildlife, and the third by hyenas after 2 siblings were killed while picking fruit. Thank you for watching Scary Animal Attacks, and be careful out there, because you don't want to end up on an episode of Scary Animal Attacks. Welcome back to Scary Animal Attacks. Today's episode is a really rare and unique one. The location of the Limpopo province in the north of the African nation of Zimbabwe. The land is a mix of grass-covered savanna with acacia trees scattered across the rolling hills. The wildlife is a diverse panel of predator and prey, but all are dangerous. The lions and hyenas top the list of predators, but the plant-eating animals that are usually the prey are not exactly harmless either. Elephants and rhinos are massive and short-tempered, but there is an iconic African animal that almost no one would describe as dangerous, the comical and mild-mannered giraffe. Marieke Engelbrecht and her family visited a game farm, as it was her mother's 50th birthday and Marieke and Juan's first wedding anniversary, so the entire family was in attendance. At the game farm, protected local wildlife are allowed to roam so they can sell hunting rights to trophy hunters. This practice is routinely ridiculed, but actually is a great source of revenue for the local economy and helps cull herds that otherwise outgrow the balance of their environment. She was a beautiful 25-year-old woman and loved her 2 German short-hair pointers, Tasco and Jascha. She leashed the 2 dogs and excitedly asked them if they wanted to go for a walk and watched them wag in approval. Marieke led the dogs out of the door and onto the groomed trail. She scanned the area to check for anything out of place or dangerous and didn't see anything unusual or alarming. Elephants were grazing in the distance across the savanna, and a herd of giraffes gave away their location by peering over the treetops a few hundred yards down the trail. Marieke started to stride out with her trusty canine companions as they passed through stands of grass and acacia trees that nearly any animal could hide in, except a giraffe. Marieke noticed the giraffe herd as she walked by with her dogs, and they were initially a safe distance from her. As she continued down the trail bent to go right through the giraffe herd, but it wasn't unusual to walk by various animals at close distance. Most of the time this practice would yield no negative outcome, but this time there was a giraffe calf and a very protective mama amongst the herd. Tasco began barking and wagging her tail as they approached the calf. Then Jascha started in as well. Marieke tried pulling the dogs away from the agitated mama, but she already started toward them. The woman did the only thing she could think of doing to protect her dogs. She bent over them. The mother giraffe began stomping toward the dogs, with Marieke protectively hovering over them. The giraffe quickly kicked her volleyball-sized hooves toward the dogs over and over again. The dogs were struck and thrown all about by the impact of the giant hooves. As Marieke was trying to protect her dogs, one of the hooves caught her at the base of the skull, killing her instantly. Her neck was broken and her body collapsed to the ground, the dog's leashes slipping from her limp hand. The dogs circled around their master, barking and retreating from the attack. The giraffe herd began quickly moving away from the confrontation, seeking to avoid a further conflict. The dogs ran the short distance back to the farm, leashes dragging in the dirt the whole way. As Hannes, Marieke's brother, watched the dogs race up, he knew something must be wrong. The authorities were notified and a small party was gathered to bring Marieke back. They could see by the tracks at the scene how the event transpired. This event was described as a freak accident. Marieke's family was not bitter about her death and did not pursue legal resolutions. The park decided not to destroy the mother giraffe as she was protecting her calf from what she perceived as danger. Marieke left her dogs and husband behind as the rare victim of a giraffe attack.